first thing I told them to do was double their prices. Just because price tells a story. You're devaluing your service. Kind of, you're not a yes person anymore. You're positioning yourself higher up the food chain. You know, you're closer to the client, and that allows you to position yourself as an expert and charge a lot more money. Small business, I wouldn't charge any less, absolute lowest end. Yeah, because if you go in and say, oh, you've got loads of words on your website, it looks really bad, and they're thinking, well, yeah, we just paid $5,000 to an agency to rank us on Google and we're on page 1 now, they're going to think you don't know what you're talking about. Client doesn't care about that. You know, they care about those business metrics that we talked about. So that's number one.
What is kind of like a couple of tips that you would give to aspiring videographer?
It was really good, and this is what I would advise a lot of other people to do, is to go in and actually don't be afraid to challenge your client. The thing that helped me be successful in my journey early on was...
All good then, sweet. Kane, thank you so much, man. I've been really looking forward to this, because obviously I know your journey and you've had an incredible journey, you know, from, you know, being a filmmaker, struggling to find ends, you know, make ends meet in some senses, to, you know, now you've just come back from a trip to Germany and you're selling video production strategy, and that setup is very different and something that we've worked closely on. And I want to provide as much value as I can in this podcast. And we're going to dive into things about your sales strategy later on. We're going to talk about advice that you have for aspiring filmmakers. But what I really want to start with is probably the obvious question: is what is video production strategy, and what's different to me just going to a client and saying, do you want a video, and then creating them a video? So yeah. So I kind of see it in two parts. So you've got the wider brand strategy, and then you've got the pre-production side of videos. And obviously everyone will be familiar with the pre-production side of things. It's where you concept, it's where you come up with the creative, the talent, the locations, everything like that. And I would wager that most people probably don't even charge for that time, which was part of my aha realization moment of when I realized things were kind of not working the way they should. And that stuff everyone has to do, otherwise the video doesn't happen. And then the other part of that is kind of the wider brand strategy. And that should be done prior to you coming on board and doing the video stuff. But oftentimes it's not. So I feel like there's kind of an interesting overlap where videographers can get involved in that stage before the concept even reaches their doorstep, so that they know the video they're creating is not just something that some 24-year-old marketing manager has come along and said, yeah, we want this, and then it goes online, it doesn't perform, but rather something that you as the expert, the video expert, can come in and see how it fits in with their wider marketing strategy and say, actually, we should do a video more like this. This is what your customers care about. And I think the impact it can have on the end result, and obviously the happiness of the client, the conversion of the video, is so much higher. Yeah, I think that's something that I noticed, and through you implementing that and obviously helping us, we obviously have ended up doing like a similar approach as well for our kind of key projects. And it is so interesting. And actually, that's definitely a mistake that I guess you made as well, but you know, that we definitely made was as a creative, I just want to create a really cool piece of content, and then not being so worried about like if it does well or not, just what the content looked like. And now we view it totally differently, and it's actually really frustrating when your video doesn't convert, because also that has a negative impact on repeat business and all of those things as well.
Yeah, what's really interesting, there's a really cool photographer. He used to be a pastor turned photographer on YouTube called Sean Tucker. And I remember watching one of his videos years ago, and he said something to the effect of, art completes its cycle when it's appreciated. And that's always stuck with me, because it's all well and good us making these awesome videos that we think is, you know, has amazing cinematography and great script and all of that. But if it just falls flat online and no one cares and no one watches it, and the client's sort of like, well, that sort of fell flat, it doesn't feel good to make those things anymore. So I think there is an element of creativity that needs to be appreciated for us to feel good about what we create.
Yeah, of course. And you spoke about, obviously, you've got the wider brand strategy, which sells for tens of thousands of dollars. And then obviously the video production element of that as well. And we, in our business, kind of scale that down a little bit as well. So we take, you know, elements of that wider brand strategy with a lot of businesses don't have, to really understand and identify, is this video that you think we should create the right video? And you know, we just finished a recruitment video, and that was, you know, they really wanted it to be like, this is who we are, this is what we do. And actually through the strategy session, we realized people aren't interested in that. You don't connect with them. And actually we went down a different route of, this is what it feels like to work here. When you come to work, this is the actual emotional feeling. And this is, and as a result, you know, the video went on to do insanely well, and they filled all the positions. And I actually think if we had gone down that first route, which I would have usually have just been like, yeah, sure, we can do that. That's the video you want, easy sell. But actually it, you know, it cost them more money, but they got way better results.
And you've increased probably your lifetime value of that customer, because they've realized how valuable what you've suggested versus what they wanted is. So, you know, they might come to you with an idea, but we're not here to sell or create ideas. We're here to achieve an outcome, a business outcome. And sometimes that is different to what they think it is. So it was really good. And this is what I would advise a lot of other people to do, is to go in and actually don't be afraid to challenge your client, because you are the expert. And oftentimes, you know, they might say, oh, we're this, we're this, we're that. And I think 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's not really true. And that's not to say that they aren't as good as they think they are. It just might mean they're good in other areas, or they're better in other areas. And these things that they think they want to communicate is the same cliche stuff that their 50 other competitors are also saying, because it's like, oh, we work in this industry, people want X, Y, and Z from us. But what actually makes you different? What actually sets you apart? So that's your kind of responsibility, to do that due diligence as the videographer, as the strategist, to look into the business and see kind of what's different, and then show that on screen. Like, our job is marketers, and all we're doing is using the camera as a vehicle to promote that business. You know, it could be a podcast, it could be billboards, it could be print ads. Ours just happens to be the camera. So you really need to know what's going on in the wider business if you're actually going to make anything useful.
So what I want to do is I want to kind of like then unpick the pricing element of it as well, because, and then we'll go back one step further to the start of your journey, because I think that will really, really resonate with a lot of people who are watching this as well. And I noticed a huge change, particularly, you know, and you messaged me and you said it's something to the effect of, man, I used to struggle to get startup businesses to pay £1,000 for a video, and they're now paying me, you know, 8 to 20 grand for some strategy with video included. And you were just like, I can't believe this. So let's unpick that change, which comes around that pricing structure. And the same way, you know, we always get asked, you know, how much should I charge? And that's going to be different to everyone. But give us some kind of ballpark figures on, like, you know, someone who's looking at top level brand strategy as a whole, and then moving down to just video production. Like I said, we don't do the whole brand strategy, but we do the video production strategy.
For sure. So I think obviously it's going to depend on a lot of different factors, but I think small business, I wouldn't charge any less, absolute lowest end, 8K, 8 to 15. And I think bigger company could be anywhere from 40 to 500,000 or more. We're not doing those kind of numbers just yet, but that is definitely something that I want to move towards. You look at a lot of the big strategic branding agencies around the world, they're quite upfront about their pricing, and most of them won't open the door for anything less than 70. And it is just because it's so valuable. And, you know, I think how you tack that onto a video is kind of, again, it's going to depend on you, because I'm not telling people to sell brand strategy here. It's kind of, that's a whole beast in itself, but you can sell video strategy kind of prior to the creation of the video. And basically what you're selling at that point is your creative thinking. So like I said, you're getting involved earlier on in the process with the marketing manager, with the CEO, and whoever else they have in their team, to basically steer them towards what sort of campaigns they should be making before that even reaches your doorstep. So you're not a yes person anymore. You're positioning yourself higher up the food chain. You know, you're closer to the client, and that allows you to position yourself as an expert and charge a lot more money. So for me, I think, you know, let's say you were to charge 5,000 for a video, I would quite comfortably tack on another 3 for some strategy. And you could just do an afternoon of workshops with them. You could just do a 3 or 4 hour meeting where you just have facilitate with them and just kind of figure out the brand and what they do know about the brand, what they don't. Some of them will have this stuff kind of written out, others won't, most won't, to be honest. So yeah, I think you can massively increase your pricing by doing that, because you're basically saying, hey, I'm taking away something that is unfortunately a commodity, and I don't want to dishearten anyone by saying that, but creative work is seen as a commodity because it's so accessible. And you're saying, actually, we can't reach this result without doing these things first. And the payoff for your company is going to be, X times higher.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just kind of, for the client, you're selling confidence, security. Strategy is something that is a word people feel good about. It's something that has a thought process behind it, as opposed to creative work, which I think so many chefs spoiling the broth, so many people thinking they understand what the right creative decision is. Oh, just change this, change that. Can we have this a bit louder, and that color grade a bit different? And you're sort of there getting annoyed, like, what do you know about these things?
Yeah.
I think it kind of eliminates a lot of those problems.
I agree. In our experience, having that strategy, and I think I just want to make the complete, I want to distance pre-production and strategy, because video production and strategy is very much a in-depth version of pre-production. So these guys will be thinking, well, I do a storyboard, I do a mood board, I do a pitch deck. This is we're going to analyze your audience. How do they currently see or view your business? And actually, what do they want to connect with? And like everything that you've said encompassed in that is that making sure you've got that right trajectory.
Yeah.
Also gives you the option, like you just said, to sign off that bit at that point. And we have also had this where, we finish off the end and it comes into implementation, which actually is something that we do offer ourselves, or we hand over to them. In this particular case, they wanted to have control of implementation, which is obviously scary for us. And they went against what we had spoken about in the initial strategy. And as a result, the video didn't perform that well, but it gave us such a clear standpoint to say, hey, that strategy session, we have written record. This was the approach. Why did that approach change when it got to this point?
That's interesting. So you've used it almost like as a way of kind of covering your backs as well.
Yeah, covering our backs, but also to further educate and actually help and let them understand. And they were still very happy, which is kind of a weird thing because we weren't. And I think that's important to know. And we let them know. We said, like, we're happy that you're pleased with everything, but we know it could have been so much better. And we then have a review meeting after about a month's time where we then go back into this in detail and we discuss kind of things for future. So, because there's learnings on our part as well.
For sure.
And it might, change our business. So we say in future, we have to implement it or whatever.
Yeah, just to backtrack a second, I think that distinction you made between pre-production and strategy is very important, because I kind of grouped them together in the beginning. I guess like brand strategy is like top level, shouldn't actually concern a lot of videographers. Video strategy is kind of at the campaign level, like per campaign level, as opposed to the overall brand. And there's obviously a crossover between the two, like you said, in kind of what the target market wants and all of those types of things. And where it's really powerful is taking away preconceptions and prejudices about what the client thinks they want versus what they actually need. And I know you mentioned earlier, and it's totally true, a lot of videographers get their kicks from making really cool creative work. At the same time, from experience, making work that maybe isn't even quite as good, that makes a lot of money for a business and keeps them really happy and pays me well, feels a lot better than creating a really nice commercial that falls flat. And God knows I've had plenty of them back in the past. Yeah, and that's honestly how I found this pathway. Just really frustrated with campaign ideas falling on my doorstep, being a yes person, like, yeah, we can do that for sure. Doing it really well. For anyone who doesn't know, I went to film school. So like I would bring a crew to these things and, we'd do like weeks and weeks and weeks of pre-production, location scouting and, actor auditions, like just crazy. And I wasn't even making big margins on these things. I might do a 10K commercial and make 3 or 4 from that, because I wanted to invest so much in doing it the right way. And at the end of it, the client would have a great time during the process, but if it didn't perform at the end of it, everyone was like disappointed. It wouldn't lead to more work,
and then you're back on the hunt for more work, doing the thing that filmmakers hate, which is sales. And then that cycle just keeps repeating itself. Whereas like you could take this, and actually I think, to be fair, I've probably given it a bit of an unfair time as well, in terms of like, it doesn't mean creating content. The fulfillment is higher when you do the strategy properly. And it doesn't mean creating stuff that's not creative as well. But the difference is as videographers and creative people, I think we are very focused on like, we can do that, and why don't we do this, and while we're there, let's do this, and we can use this, and that'd be really cool. No one's paying you for that. And actually what this highlighted was, let's backtrack for a second. I've got some amazing ideas, but just hold on. Let's find out what your audience wants. Let's find out what's going to work. And then I come across with like, okay, this is going to work. By the way, why don't we do this creative idea? Now, from the client's point of view, in my experience, they've then been like, oh, wow, this guy knows his stuff. I should listen to him. This makes sense. And he's come up with this idea. Yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. Yeah. And then you actually get more creative freedom by slowing it down for a second. Yeah. Plus, you are getting paid more because you add it on. We only do it for our big projects as well. And I'm not going to sit here and say we do this for everything. We still work on a variety of projects, but we're pushing more and more of those. Yeah. And as our track record grows from our case studies, we can more confidently, as time goes on, saying like, you like this video? Yep. And this one? Yep. And this one? Yep. All had strategy. Yeah. Only reason they're successful. Yeah. You didn't like these as much? No? Okay. They didn't. Yeah. And then it's like, what do you want?
At the end of the day, those projects that you did strategy for, where the client listened to you and kind of followed through with that process, they are happy. They not only refer you to other people, getting more business, getting repeat business from them, but you now have tangible metrics. And that's something else I would recommend to people as part of your video production strategy, is to think about what metrics you're going to track before you even shoot the damn thing. Yeah. And make sure that you're closely communicating with the marketing manager or whoever's handling ads or whatever they're doing, so that you have, hey, I'm going to check in with you 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months down the line. I want impressions, I want clicks, I want these metrics from you, because your case study is not a portfolio. A portfolio just shows that you can make nice looking stuff. I want to see, and a client wants to see, what the problem was that you were looking to solve from the outset, how you approached it, and what the final outcome was, both in the video itself and the metrics that it kind of, got back for the business. And I think that's where clients really see your value.
Yeah, because who signs off the budgets in big clients? Finance director. Maybe the marketing manager, but often those purse strings are held by someone, and the person at the top of the train, we all know this from being business owners. Even though we're creative, when we have our business hat on, what are we looking at? Cost versus return on investment, right? So we can create videos, and our track record, our portfolio is like, great, look at this cool stuff. And that does attract some people. It definitely does. But then it's like, how cool is this video? Plus, it did 10x on this, or it did this, that, and the other. Yeah. I think they say SMART, don't they? Specific, measurable.
This is new to me.
SMA. I think A is like.
I'm learning something.
I think it's achievable.
Okay.
Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, or whatever, timestamp.
I like that.
I'll probably hash that up, but Google will tell you this stuff. But basically, they say those SMART objectives. So specific, what specifically you want to do? We are going to specifically create a recruitment campaign to increase website traffic to the recruitment page or whatever. Measurable, we're going to measure this by the amount of page visits that this has in this time period. Achievable, is it achievable? When you've taken into account everything, budgets and all the rest of it, are those things achievable? It should be, if you've handled that right. Realistic? My interpretation of this, by the way, is if it's achievable, then it's pretty much realistic. There might be like kind of long distance goals. So in that realistic section, you can kind of like note that down.
Or maybe that's something where budget comes into question. It's like, we want to achieve 100,000, impressions. It's like, that's achievable, but it's not realistic with the budget you've given me.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely. And then at that point as well, when you go through that with the client, it's another point for you to be like, we need more money. We need more budget. And you've always said this to me, it's so you're trying to feel, this problem in your business is worth $100,000 or pounds or whatever. You're willing to spend 2,000. Does that seem like a sizable, realistic thing? And actually, if you follow that through, then it's fine.
Yeah, just hold the mirror up to the client.
Timely is also deadlines as well.
Hold the mirror up to the client for sure. And I think the biggest one out of that SMART acronym that stands out to me is measurable, because be really clear with your client from the outset about ask them, how are we measuring the success of this project? Like, how will I know that I've done a good job for you?
What does good look like? I guess is that simple.
Otherwise, again, we're back to the start of being this whole like, don't like that color, don't like that lighting, oh, I'm not sure, can we just make this music a bit different? Like that stuff gets eradicated because we know exactly what the metrics are, and you as the video expert can go in and make the creative decisions that matches with that strategy. And it kind of takes the client out of it in a good way. Like they're there for the whole journey, but it kind of covers your back, and that they know you have a framework and a process. And I think that's pretty much what it comes down to at the end of the day. And just reading between the lines of something you said earlier about, this had strategy, this didn't. It's all about how you package it. Like if you've ever seen like a brand identity done by a design agency, and they talk about how they came up with the logo, this idea, this concept, we mixed it with this and we added the letter Q from your company, and now it's made this weird, interesting shape. Clients eat that stuff up because they love to see the thought process that's gone into it. So it's the same with video. Like right now, most people are probably having an online meeting. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Yes, people. You go and make the video, you send them probably a Vimeo link or a Frame.io link. And now balls in their court, comments coming through, your emails pinging through, new revision requests, and you're thinking, oh, for God's sake. Whereas if you package that up in something that's more like, this was our thought process, this is why we've come up with this concept, like you can see now, like this is the metric we're trying to achieve with this. They think, oh yeah, like this has already been well thought out, and just again makes you look so much more.
Yes, more intelligent. Yeah. And also they can see where their money's going, and then they're like, when they're fired up, because they're often not as creative, they're just like, this is it. They literally,
but they never have any problem putting their opinion forward on the creative. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I want to get into kind of like how that changes the sales process and all of that, good stuff, like the actual behind the scenes look in a moment. But just before we do, I want to kind of ask, like, what is kind of like a couple of tips that you would give to aspiring videographer, a filmmaker that's been where you've been, and I've been as well. You're starting out, you're saying yes to these clients, you're getting lowish paying clients or whatever. You want to move towards these bigger projects, these bigger commercials. Like, what advice would you give to someone like that in order to help grow? Because I think what initially comes out to me is, that's fine, but look at Kane. He's done all of this stuff, but there was a time where we were in that position too. And I think some people will, be like, yeah, that's valuable, but I'm just getting going.
Yeah.
Now's probably a good place to start.
For sure. Obviously, the first one is perseverance. Like there isn't a quick tip like that I could give you where suddenly you're going to be doing what Ross and I are doing. Like that's just not how it goes. But to give you something more kind of uplifting, I suppose, the first one is to really genuinely care about your clients more so than your own creativity. And that, I think a lot of us are very introverted. We just want to make cool stuff, introspective, I should say. I just want to make cool stuff because I enjoy it and I like sticking up lights. But client doesn't care about that. They care about those business metrics that we talked about. So that's number one. I think number two is really understanding where your video fits into the wider marketing strategy, because something, again, I really didn't realize early on is my video stuff is like very important, but it's maybe 25% of the overall marketing strategy. There's SEO, there's copywriting, there's ads, there's all sorts of things, organic content, blogs. Like I've seen this with a couple of guys I've mentored from the academy as well, where they're like, I've got this outreach email, like, what do you think about it? And I'll read it and I'm like, one of the things I'll say is, oh, you've got loads of copy on your website. Like we could condense that down into a video. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But have you considered that maybe they worked with an SEO copywriter to rank for all the keywords that they're looking to rank for their business? Have you thought about that? Because you should. And you need to know what copy needs to stay in that website so you're not screwing over their Google ranking. Or you use it to your benefit and say, hey, look, I understand that you're doing some SEO ranking for your website. We can actually reduce that, caption it in the video so you still get all the organic reach of it, but in a much more aesthetic way that makes your brand look more.
And it just sounds like more of your stuff as well, which makes them want to go.
Because if you go in and say, oh, you've got loads of words on your website, it looks really bad, and they're thinking, well, yeah, we just paid $5,000 to an agency to rank us on Google and we're on page 1 now, they're going to think you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think those are the two things really.
Just understanding where you fit into that picture and also what value you can provide outside of what they're already doing. And video isn't just the number one solution, but how it can help the others. Yeah. And
but we know it's the best medium for it. Just know where it fits in with their strategy.
Yeah.
I think
that's really good advice. So sales wise, I want to know your kind of current sales strategy and how you would actually make that process. Hey guys, so we're now going to move this conversation over to our Perspective Pro group. So if you want to find out how Kane actually makes these sales and gets to travel all over the world selling video production strategy, then make sure you take a look at that. The link is in the description below. If you don't know, then our Perspective Pro group is our online community and our app based totally on how we can dedicate our time to help more filmmakers like you grow their videography businesses. Inside the app, we've got so much information from expert features, some more podcasts like this one. We've also got daily business tips, so you're up to date with the latest industry trends. We also do community role play, so you don't have any of those awkward sales calls, and lots more exclusive content like that. Not to mention, you have the opportunity to win hundreds of dollars worth of brand new equipment every month in our monthly competitions, which are designed to challenge you creatively, provide feedback, and make sure you're producing the best work you possibly can to attract even more clients. I'll link that in the description below. Be sure to go and check it out, and we're going to take this conversation over there right now. I'll see you there.